Now that I've got that to where the tape should stick a little better to it, so it's clean and dry, go ahead and start taping. So as I'm in here starting to tape on this, I flipped it over, and I think that one I did have to tape, but I'm seeing that this is just screwed in. So what I think I'm gonna do to save myself some work and just, just prevent getting paint where I don't want paint, I'm gonna unscrew these, see if I can't pop this unit out and have just this plate. So let's go ahead and pull these screws. So that pops out just like that. And this little plate, nice, there's my sliding drawer. And then this thing is held in with just one more little bolt, or screw, I mean. So there's that little piece that is gonna slide behind. Oh, this is kind of neat. So this is like plastic or glass, and you can see the light bulb shines in to this little prism where it gets sent through the rest of this little glass or plastic pane, and the black is just there for contrast in the daytime, just to back it. So I guess that's how that works. Light bulb into the prism, shines up through those letters. This thing over here doesn't look like it's coming off, but that makes my life a heck of a lot easier. So all I really need to worry about is protecting this black space here. I don't know how that is attached, I can't tell. And of course the writing there. To protect this engine writing up here, all I did was throw a big piece of tape over it, and then I'm gonna take my little X-Acto blade and just drag it right along the inside of that edge. And my idea is I could cut away the tape I don't want. Now I really do need two hands for this, so I'm gonna set the camera down and I'll update you in a second. Let's go ahead and peel this away. See if that worked. Nope. Now that end I'll need to redo. That's fine. But somewhat worked. Okay, well, I'll touch it up and update you. Went ahead and finished this up and did the same process here, so I should be able to just peel these away. That's nice. And have that part covered up. Man, that's a pretty satisfying process right there. So I just laid my tape down, then I put my razor blade edge right in that crease, and that's protected. And so what I may do now that those are protected up is go ahead and paint this whole thing. All right, so here's the perk of painting this on this little board is I don't want this repainted right now, so I can go ahead and just set this aside and have the table free for painting that. And that one is thick enough that I should be able to grab it from the back and get my fingers beneath it without ruining the visible part of the paint. My hope is that this lasts a long, long time, and to help encourage that, I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with some primer before I do my regular paint job, just to give it a little something more to grab onto. So let's go ahead and get after it. I'm gonna try to go from another angle. Just trying to go light dustings here so I don't end up with runs, uneven coverage. Just trying to prepare this surface to actually accept paint. So there we go. So just a couple of minutes in the sun should pretty well prepare that to accept paint. All right, so I've got some gold metallic paint here that I'm gonna do on that shifter insert just to end up with those little edges that were silver before. I'd like those to be gold this time around, just and shiny, really, just so they're metallic. So I'm gonna shake this can really well because I found this metallic paint separates out and you get really weird artifacts that I don't enjoy if it's not shaken up quite right. So I'm gonna shake the crap out of it and then spray her up. My focus is on that outer edge primarily. Of course, I want all of this coated. I'm gonna continue shaking. And this stuff is another one you really want to go light layers with, because if you let there become runs at all, you get some very strange behavior where the paint starts to bubble up on itself and just generally look really quite weird. So this is one to go lots of thin dustings versus one big high coverage pass. Another thing is that this stuff, even when it's supposedly dry, I found if you get your fingers warm and you stick it to it for a second, it will peel off on your hand. And so it's going to be really important that I get a good covering with that gloss finishing coat on here, because I want it to stick. I don't want there to be fingerprints in this paint anytime soon. So that's looking kind of cool. I'm trying to make sure I've got all the insides, all the little corners. That'll just help bring the finish quality up a good bit. So I'm gonna give that a couple minutes to dry, and once it's had a second to set up, I'll hit it with that clear coat. Now, one thing that occurs to me as I'm doing this is that this clear coat is gloss finish and that paint was metallic finish. So I may actually be knocking down that paint. So what I think I might do is a layer of that paint, which I've already done, layer of this gloss clear coat to seal in the layer I just painted, so at least what's there will hopefully stay. Oh yeah, see that? They're starting to eat away at each other. This is exactly what I was hoping wouldn't happen. So I'm gonna lay off it with this. I'm actually gonna hit it one more time with the gold, and I'll have a nice dusting of that gold on top. The idea is that even if that top layer is eaten away a little bit, there'll be gold beneath it, so it'll be less likely to be seen. So I noticed this clear insert was just looking a little bit worn, a little bit dirty. And so what I did is I didn't want to risk that Goo Gone taking off the white letters. And so I just grabbed some dish soap and water and just gave this a quick wash with my hands. It actually does look quite a bit nicer. It's just a little bit cleaner, a little touch that'll look that much better in the car. So this little black door is what goes on sliders to cover up the cigarette lighter and that associated little tray. And so I went ahead and did the same thing, just washed it with some soap and water, dried it off. It looks a little better from the front, but what that gave me the idea is that's just a flat little piece of metal. What I may do is once I have access to our laser cutter at school again, actually run this through it and do some kind of custom engraving on there. I think could be really cool. Just some small touch would be neat. So maybe I'll hand draw some art, feed it into the laser cutter, and have it engraved into this little sheet of metal. Now that this has had a little bit of time to set up, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with one more coat of this metallic gold just to try it. See some of those artifacts where the clear coat actually ate away at the gold paint and you can see the white primer through. So I'm going to hit it one more time with the gold very lightly just to put that metallic sheen back on it. And again, this paint is really heavy and pools and starts to swirl within itself if you get it all too much. So I'm going to try and go as light as I possibly can to just get that covered here and continue to shake the can. What I don't want are those really crappy looking runs of this paint that happen so quickly. So I'm gonna move this piece indoors to dry, just into my garage, because there's so much pollen in the air. I really don't want that getting in and ruining this nice metallic finish. I don't know if you how it's looking on camera, but really it's looking pretty nice from where I'm standing. So I'm gonna go ahead and move that and call it a night. This had overnight to dry, and it feels like it dried up really nice. The paint came out pretty smooth on here, even coverage. This has obviously had even a little more time to dry. It's not looking quite as nice. It's okay. Fairly smooth finish, glossy enough. So we'll see how they look together. And I'm excited to pull the painter's tape off of this thing, reassemble everything on the back, and then see how it looks with the white insert on top of it. Tape came off fairly well. Let's just go ahead and peek with the white on there. Oh, that looks nice. Oh, I gotta take this off the bottom too. I forgot where the logo is. Okay. And that's what we're looking like on the inside. I'll call that a big improvement. So here's my plan. Spray that white insert with some adhesive spray. Stick it to this, hold it in place, give it a little bit, maybe 30 minutes to dry. And then I'll flip it over, reassemble the back, and then we'll put everything back in the car. So I picked up some 3M, it says general purpose spray adhesive, and this seemed like it might be good enough for the job. So all I'm gonna do is go ahead and spray the back of that white insert, give it maybe 30 seconds to set up and get tacky, and then apply some pressure, set it in place on the gold insert. I've brought out here also like a paintbrush and a pencil to help me sort of just gently press it into place, try and get it to fully be in contact, the two pieces. Oh, that stuff is really sticky. Wow, that is sticky. Guess that's good. That's what it's meant to be. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and set this down and use two hands because I do want to get this carefully applied. So this came out great. It actually fit right in there pretty snug. That adhesive held tight right the first try. So there is our finished center insert. I think it looks a lot better than before. And as a nice little touch too, I have the screws I'm about to attach this to the car with. And I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and treat those screws gold as well, so they just blend in a little better since they look kind of old and they're sort of just got some surface oxidation on them anyway. So to paint these screws gold to match, this little piece of MDF came in really handy. Here's my thought process. I've just drilled them into there just enough that they'll stand upright, and I really only need to paint the heads because the rest of the screw will be down inside the car anyway. So this way, they're upright and supported. I can spray the heads gold, give them a minute to dry in the sun, and then just very carefully grabbing by the base that's sticking out of there, I'll be able to remove them from the board, place them into the car, and they should be able to keep that gold intact. That ought to do it right there. While I'm waiting on those screws to dry, I figured we'd go ahead and reassemble the back of this guy. So I'm back inside where all those pieces were hanging out overnight, and we're gonna go ahead and put it back together. I'm gonna flip this over on its face and try to be sort of gentle with it because I don't want to scuff paint, and see if I can't remember how all this was. Now I believe this was here, but I think I might have to put this little lighting fixture back together first. So that'll lay right into there, smooth. This little black piece should fit on top. I can line them up that way. There we go, totally covered other than that little end of the prism. And this is gonna sit lined up just like that. Wow, that falls nicely into place. And then the last thing will be, oh, I'm glad I didn't put those in just yet actually, because they're gonna share. That'll hold those together. So that's how that gets reassembled. So I'm gonna throw those screws back in. But I wasn't able to find the screw that fits here. I don't know where it went. But I did find in my toolbox this little assortment of hanging accessories, I guess, which had a couple of these screws in there. And luckily enough, it's not the right length, but it is the right diameter and thread count. That actually fits right in there. And I think there's plenty of room underneath in that open console where this might be able to sit without being in the way of anything. Now here's the problem. That actually didn't help much of anything. So I may take that right back off and just go ahead and throw some tape on this on the underside. I made a mistake. This, of course, has to go together before I can assemble all this on the back. So I'm real quick going to tear that back apart, assemble that, and then bolt it into place. And I actually did find my fourth. It was just under this little towel. I have all those screws back, including the one that holds this down. So no more missing screw. Here's that assembly from the front. As you can see, it just slides up and down in here. There's these little plastic inserts that are not a super snug fit, sort of hold it in place. So they're actually so loose that I think it drifts down on its own. So that might be something I address. Once I get it back in the car, I'll see if that's still a problem. Or if it is, I'll go ahead and put some kind of little shim or even just a piece of tape for a little bit of spacing to hold that a little bit more snugly in place. But I'm gonna put this back where it was. So I'm gonna sort of carefully. It was decidedly not a one-handed job, but I went ahead and reattached those 4 screws, and of course our 5th one is snug here. This whole thing feels really solid together, so I'm excited for that. Let's flip it over and see how it looks with the drawer reinstalled. Okay, and this slides even more snugly than it did before, which is victory because it was sliding when I didn't want it to. So overall, really excited about how this piece turned out. I can't wait to get it back in the car. We are back in the car. I've got the freshly finished piece here, and of course this big mess of wires and open space and rusty parts here. So what I'm gonna do is put this back in place. I've of course got to take this little knob off of my gear shifter, and I'm gonna put this back into neutral so that it sits vertically so I can fit it back through this hole. I'm gonna put that into place and line everything up. Of course, what I found was I had to slide it over this, clip this little bulb into place, then put it the rest of the way down and try to line up those corner screw holes with the corners of this gap here. Yesterday when I was trying to line this back up, I found this wasn't lining up exactly where I needed it to be. So I think it's gonna be a little bit of a task to get it back in, but I'm gonna go ahead and try it with both hands and update you in a second. All right, so we are back in business, reinstalled. This is working again, and we should have the added benefit of this lighting up when I turn the lights to the car on, which it didn't do before. So let's go ahead and try that real quick. So let's see if this lights up when I pull the light switch. It's working. It's weak, but it does work. Bonus round, while I'm in here, I'm so sick of these little cup holders in the way. You can barely even pull the e-brake. I found that there is a little screw on either side, and I'm just gonna pull those out and see if I can get this thing off. All right, I went ahead and pulled those screws off of the sides, and this should now just slide right on up and out. That feels so much nicer, just to have this area a little more open. I know that was somewhat useful to have those little cup holders there. I did set stuff in them a lot, like my keys and screws and whatever I was working on, but it just feels a lot better to have that gone. Next thing I'll probably want to do is address, oh, it's definitely address this. That apparently is not held in place by anything. So I'm gonna replace those screws. I guess they weren't just holding the cup holder, they were holding this down. So I'm gonna put those back in. All right, with those two screws back in place, this feels much more solid. For another day, I'll open this whole thing back up and try to fix these two switches. This one is reversed, but I can now get my hand on my emergency brake, set it into place, and put it back down much easier. And look at that, shifter insert.